Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, March 26, 2020, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. Alright, guys, well, I hope you're faring well throughout this pandemic crisis here, this hysteria here, and I'm not doing that well myself. I'm furloughed from my job. I'm in the food service industry, if you didn't know. And my I work for like a high-end fancy Thai restaurant. Okay, so they were already Asian people to begin with, and we were suffering from that. And then when they put all these rules into effect, they just can't have full staff on. It's just they got so many takeout orders. People can't take out every night of the week. Especially if they're furloughed too. So business is way down, and so I'm furloughed from this job. And to add insult to injury, we had like a big rainstorm here. I had to be out and about and do some stuff and whatnot. So my phone got wet and it got all short circuited out. It can't be repaired. So I need a new phone now where, I got to really watch my finances. And I'm sure there's plenty of people in the same boat. Just couldn't happen at a worse time. And I was supposed to be on the radio today with Jimmy up in Bellows Falls there in Vermont, WOOL, and I couldn't do it because I have no phone. So, and I don't have anybody's phone near me I can borrow and all that kind of stuff. So, just ain't happening. So that was just a terrible thing. And yeah, I did my video. I don't know if you saw it on the ghost trains of New York about all of these trains coming out of Manhattan just have no passengers, very few passengers on trains. Just very strange, very surreal. And a lot of the people commented about it living close to the New York area, the same sorts of things. But, and I'm sure people are like, well, what's he talking about? He doesn't, quite think this thing is kosher and all that kind of stuff. Well, look, guys, if you didn't know, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is a private entity that's funded by it's not a federal agency. Private, okay? Nothing federal about it. Like the Federal Reserve Bank is about as federal as Federal Express. They're private. Nobody can tell them what to do. And when you want to get a cushy job at the CDC, okay, you come from companies like Bayer, Johnson and Johnson, and Merck. The ex-department heads, vice presidents, etc. Come from these big pharma, $1 billion. The ones that put the ads on during daytime TV. So you go running to your doctor and say, hey, I want this drug. You self-diagnose and go running to the doctor. The doctor gets kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies, and they get all kinds of extra money to do all kinds of data collecting for them and all this kind of stuff. And they get kickbacks. And, look, there's a lot more to this, folks, than you possibly can imagine, okay? And then you have the media fomenting the hysteria about it, and that's what they do. It comes natural to them because, the more they can play it up, the more bucks they make, man. So, look, you gotta realize this, guys. Don't be naive, okay? Don't be like the stupid people in my own family, okay? There's only two kinds of people in the world, all right? The people who reject the matrix and the people who want to merge with it. You see what I'm saying? And people take so much pride with the fact that they're merging with the matrix. And, to them, that's the pinnacle of their lifetime. So, but see, for me, I reject the matrix. So, I'm always going to be the pariah and outcast and everything because I'm not buying it. See? So, just the blue pill, red pill logic applied, okay? Just think about it, all right? And the suffering that it's going to cause, the damage to the economy. Look, before last year, it was measles, measles, measles. Who's got it? Who's getting it? Who's got shots? Who's got vaccines? The vaccine controversy, all this kind of stuff. Then the year before it was Zika, Zika, Zika. Zika's going to get you. Don't go to South America. Don't be pregnant. Don't do this. And small craniums and blah, blah, blah. Pesticides and all this kind of stuff got into it. All right, so it was a Zika virus. Then the year before that, it was SARS. And the year before that, it was bird flu. And then the year before that, it was swine flu. And the year before, it's always something, folks. And it always amounts to nothing. And they claim they got it all under control. 100% attributable to them and, their measures and all this kind of stuff. It's often too late that they apply their measures, but these things come out of left field supposedly and all this kind of stuff. More people have it in New York than the West Coast, where so many Asian people live and have relatives overseas, are constantly traveling back and forth. And look, there's so many things that don't make sense about this. People who have the sniffles and think they have it are going to go wait online with people who actually have corona. They just have like a cold or regular flu. Now they got coronavirus because they're waiting in line to get tested with other people with corona. It doesn't make sense. It's just shutting everything down, and it's just so extreme, in my opinion. Because I'm telling you, there's a whole line going back into my past. I can remember every year another new disease, Legionnaire's disease. Everything's gonna get you. You know what I mean? So, like, all new diseases pop out of, bacteria and viruses mutate so fast and all this kind of stuff. They adapt so fast and all this kind of stuff. And, what about immune systems in animals and human beings? Can they adapt just as fast? Well, I would imagine if they're getting proper nutrition and all, which nobody does. Nobody gets proper nutrition because we're not smarter than the animals when it comes to that. See, when the animals need their nutrition, they automatically know what it is they have to eat. Elephants go 100 miles to lick salt off rocks. Okay? The kings of the sea, which isn't the shark, folks. Everybody, well, who's the king of the sea? The shark. The shark. No, not the shark. The orca is the king of the sea. The wolves of the sea. And they like to eat white sharks' livers. See, they don't eat the rest of the shark. They don't care about the rest of the shark. The orca just wants one thing. They know they got to eat something from the shark. Like when you go to the vitamin store and say, let me get shark liver, tablets or whatever, capsules, okay? The orca knows instinctively, okay, that it's got to eat the shark's liver. It needs something from it. Who's telling it that? Okay, their bodies are telling them that, and our bodies are telling us what to eat too, but we don't hear it, we don't listen. Sometimes we do, most of the times we don't. How many times did you go to your pantry or refrigerator and look in there? It's full of stuff, but you don't want anything that's in there, okay, because your body trying to tell you you don't got it. It's something else that you need, but you know its voice is too weak, you can't hear it, okay? Where elephants and orcas and other animals on this planet understand right away what they need to eat and when they need to eat it, okay? There's diseases among animals, but not as much as human beings, okay? They always say about cats and dogs have germs in their saliva and all this kind of bad, they do, I guess, to some extent or whatever, but they have a lot less than human beings, see, because the enzymes in their mouth kill bacteria automatically, you see. So they don't have a lot of problems with bacteria. That's why, they can clean themselves in their private parts and eat, rotten carrion and all that kind of stuff because they have enzymes in their mouth that kill all the bad bacteria, you see. We don't have that. So we got much fouler and dirtier mouths. But people want to believe the opposite because people are crazy, you see. And this hysteria just demonstrates how crazy people are. Okay, you got your family at home and you got 7 days to feed them, just like every other week. Why did you go to the grocery store and buy 87 cans of, potatoes and, 30 boxes of pasta and all this kind of stuff? You could go to the grocery store anytime you want. You're not forbidden from going there. Well, maybe in some countries now they got it in lockdown. But, I never accept their training. Okay, so with that off my chest, guys, watch my video, Ghost Trains in New York. It's just a couple minutes long if you haven't seen it. It's just as good as any of the ones produced by major news channels. They're like, look at this, Ghost City, nobody's here, blah, blah, blah. And they got like 11,000 views. Their videos suck. And mine's good. Well, before I get into that, I just want to talk about Jimmy's been posting some videos, as he always does, about the artifacts that he finds on his property there in Vermont that I've gone up and seen. I've seen the quarry on his property. I've seen evidence of it. I'm not a professional anthropologist or archaeologist, but it's clear evidence. I am an amateur one. It's clear evidence of quarrying of white quartz on his property over there, among other things. Besides the serpent wall, split stones, perch rocks, marker stones, standing rocks, symmetry in the walls, serpent heads in the walls, all over his property. Okay. All kinds of astronomical alignments with the wall, with the serpent wall. And the many, many artifacts that he finds, and people often criticize him and say, it's nothing, you're seeing things in there that are not really there, and blah, blah, blah. All right, well, I've mentioned on this channel before this article from Live Science here about these 8,300-year-old snakeheads from, I believe, the Ukraine, around the Black Sea area there. And I just want you to look at these things, okay? Here's one of them. Okay, so you see it. Here's the stone. And here's, an artist's abstract illustration of it, all right? Okay, so you're telling me that any Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to identify it. Well, no, you have to have a certain trained eye to look at these things, similar to Jimmy's trained eye and how to look at the walls. And because it does take a subtle eye, I do it myself, you see. So it took me a while to understand what was going on with the walls, okay? This very subtle evidence of handicraft in there, engineering skills, astronomical art, whatever it is, okay? But just look at these artifacts here that they found in the Ukraine. This lady from the Science Academy in Ukraine there, and they look like nothing. The average person will probably walk right over and say, or if you picked it up and say, hey, look at this carving right here, if you were able to identify them, if you could say it's nothing. But here's what they found on these things at closer look. Okay, so you're telling me you could, absolutely, I could see that. No, you couldn't. Okay, it requires a trained eye to look at stone. And Jimmy and I go through this all the time on the radio show and our conversations with each other. That requires a trained eye in these subtleties in the stonework, whether it be carving in the stone, the way the walls and other stone structures are built, etc., etc., okay? It's often these details and subtleties that are noticed in the walls, by every researcher at every site with megalithic, polygonal stonework, whatever it is, okay? They're noticing things, whether it be astronomical alignment, star charts, all sorts of things, language such as in the nubs, language such as in the stone walls, okay? People say it's nothing, but it's not nothing, okay? It's something. And I think what's ironic about it is a lot of these people think that mainstream archaeologists would bail them out by saying, well, what Jimmy's showing is nothing over there, whatever. But I hate to tell you, you're wrong about that. Just look at these artifacts here, okay? So I think those criticisms, that are leveled against Jimmy and some of the artifacts are unfair. I've said it before on my channel, based on this research right here. Okay, look at these things. Okay, you can see the scale in millimeters. These are small objects. All right, so In any case, I often bring that up when people criticize. I see that, when somebody gives a thumbs down because they say, "Oh, it's nothing. It's you don't know what you're talking about or whatever." I'm sorry, but he does, and yeah, some years back I probably would have said the same thing myself. But what I discovered in the wall is just absolutely phenomenal. Okay, so that brings us to the main event here, which is this article. And sorry for digging through all that other stuff, but I just had to get it off my chest. Why we should stop using Stone Age to describe early humans. I believe this article is from the Independent here from 2017 or 2016, fairly recent. And it's so relative to the sort of mindset and idea that I have on my channel about the new world, the bias, and it's called the new world. It's called the new world by Europeans because their assumption was that that was the old world, and they've been working to do this, over the decades here in the modern age of archaeology. Because archaeology and anthropology and most of the ologies are all new sciences, guys. They haven't been around for thousands of years like mathematics and geometry and other things like that. Okay? These are all recent sciences. Okay, so it would say it's 200 years old, we're using modern equipment, but I hate to tell you that. And in the scope of time frame of the existence of all things. It's like the bite on a flea on a flea's ass. Okay, so you think this stuff is all refined and they got it down pat, and the carbon 14. I already went over on this channel. Cornell University says the carbon 14 dating is probably no good because they didn't take account this and that and the other thing and the weather and the climate and cataclysms, all this kind of stuff. It's never taken into account in any of these carbon 14 things. And wood reused again and again and again. And they're doing tree ring dating on that have to do with the structures, and it's wood that's been reused because wood is so scarce in desert areas. They use it, took it out of some old structure and put it in a newer one, and then they give it the wrong date. So lots of mistakes can be made. All right. So it's just so relative to the stuff that I do on my channel and sort of mindset I do on my channel. I agree, although I don't agree with some of the other things said in this article. But you just follow me with this, okay? It's not a long article. Critics argue the term was used to suggest Aboriginal people were backward, quote unquote, backward, or quote unquote, primitive. And, I strongly disagree with that, just like this person does. Get the writer's name. The Stone Age is a term often used to refer to early periods in human cultural evolution when deliberately manufactured sharp stone flakes were the main cutting tool. But it's also used to describe cultures that are seen as quote-unquote backward or quote-unquote primitive. Is this use relevant or even accurate? How a technology was forgotten and rediscovered. The earliest stone tools we know of date to 3.3 million years ago, made by unknown human ancestors in Africa. And here's where this goes off base for me, because they follow the whole out of Africa rule. I don't believe in that on my channel. I sort of follow Robert Sepper's work with believe that humankind came developed separately in different ways and different combinations and forms with other hominids elsewhere on Earth in different time periods. So it's not all out of Africa and all this kind of stuff. Stoneworking was a key technology as hominins spread throughout the world and remained so until the Iron Age, which began about 3,000 years ago, they say, with their baloney time scheme there. After that, their use started to decline in some parts of the world. By the medieval period, I'm really offended by all these political crap. I don't give a crap either way. It's all baloney. Those people are never going to do anything for you, folks. Not ever. None of them are. Doesn't matter what party they're in. They're going to do nothing for anybody. They never do. By the medieval period from around 500 to 1400 CE, knowledge of stoneworking was almost completely lost in Europe. Flint, arrow, and spear points were often found lying in fields. People thought they were weapons used in the war in heaven, the biblical tale of when the angels ousted Lucifer or were made by elves and fairies. Sort of Tolkien-ish there. It was only in the early 1700s that European people realized that stone tools, frequently found in association with extinct animal bones, might be the work of earlier humans. A French missionary made a crucial leap. In 1724, Joseph Francois Lafitau made noticed that Iroquois people in Canada used stone tools similar to those found at European archaeological sites. From this observation, he suggested that contemporary cultures could be used as an analogy for the past. And I guess in some ways they can, but they don't have the timeline right, and I'm sure this person doesn't believe there's a more advanced civilization prior to the cataclysm or catastrophe that happened sometime 11,000, 1,200 years ago, what they call the Ice Age, but it was something totally different. Unnatural selection. More than 100 years later, in 1859, Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species. He proposed that animal species changed over time through natural selection, sometimes called survival of the fittest. Applied to human societies, Darwin's theory gave rise to a race-based notion of progress, with white Christian male at the pinnacle of human evolution. American anthropologist, so many ads. Just gotta show you all this junk. Okay, below this. American anthropologist Lewis Morgan, in his 1877 book, Ancient Society, argued that all human populations pass through stages of savagery through barbarism to civilization. Stone tool technology, he argued, was a feature of savagery. The state was set to construct indigenous people as living representatives of the past who had never evolved. This was no longer an analogy, but a judgment. In the 19th and 20th centuries, these ideas were put to sinister use as European nations expanded their colonies in indigenous lands. Placing indigenous people lower on the evolutionary ladder justified genocide, land theft, and forced conversion to Christianity, all in the name of quote-unquote civilization. The use of stone tools thus became a liability. Stone tools versus agriculture. In Australia, quote-unquote Stone Age was seen not as a technology practiced by Aboriginal people, but rather as the essence of what they were. Stone Age, quote-unquote, people were assumed to have no system of land tenure. For that, you needed to improve the land through agriculture, for example, by vegetation clearing, cultivation, and animal husbandry. An example of this concept occurs in the science fiction novel and blockbuster movie, The Martian. Astronaut Mark Watney, abandoned on Mars, grows potatoes to keep himself alive, leaving him to say, "They say once you grow crops somewhere, you have officially colonized it. So technically, I colonized Mars." In recent years, it's been recognized that what the European invaders saw on arrival in Australia was a landscape curated by thousands of years of land management rather than a wilderness, exactly similar to what Charles C. Mann goes on in his book 1491 about the Americas, the exact same thing. Ironically, the use of stone tools to grind seeds or grain was once held to be a hallmark of early agriculture, but archaeologists have shown that Aboriginal people, most likely women, used this technology thousands of years before people in Europe or the Middle East, okay? And in Native American cultures, the women were in charge of the agriculture while the men were the hunters and fishermen and other crafts, doing other crafts such as flinting, spears, knives, and arrowheads. was a craft and done a lot faster than people think. As C.W. Saran goes over in his book, The First American, I go over it on his channel. The most successful technology in human history. By the 1960s, archaeologists and anthropologists had moved away from the idea of quote-unquote progress, influenced by the work of the German-American anthropologist Franz Boas. Instead of being ranked in a hierarchy of evolution, human cultures were seen as internally coherent social and political systems. Indigenous worldviews were no more or less quote unquote advanced than Western ones. But old ideas die hard. We know it, especially when they support contemporary political structures. The view that Aboriginal people are living in the Stone Age is still held by some people in Australia today. It resurfaces whenever Aboriginal people are thought to be gaining too much political traction, as these tweets demonstrate. So they show some tweets here. I'm not going to go into it. Talk about the Aboriginal peoples and, the credit that they don't get because they're perceived to be these backward people. So I'll put a link to this article somewhere you can read them whatever you want to do. Contrary to popular belief, stone tool technology is not simple. It is highly skilled, requiring knowledge of geomorphology, geology, fracture mechanics, and the thermal properties of stone. And these are the things that Jimmy talks about frequently in his discussions on the radio with me and Al. And, I don't know if people are taking him seriously or not, but, he's saying exactly this. Thousands of archaeologists studying stone tools can only approximate the complexity of a science that enabled the Aboriginal people to survive and thrive through some of the most challenging environmental changes in human history. And I think that's an understatement in many cases. Here's some points made by some people, some very nice ones, colored too. Stone tools are still being made and used, and not just by indigenous people. In 1975, the archaeologist Don Crabtree underwent surgery with obsidian scalpels he had manufactured himself. That guy's crazy. Obsidian blades cause less tissue damage than surgical steel knives, and the wounds heal more quickly. Would you imagine that? Surgeons still use them. Very interesting. I did not know that. That seems crazy, but apparently much more sane. Stoneworking is one of the most successful technologies used by humans and their ancestors from 3.3 million years ago to the present day. And, maybe they have that right, and maybe the picture of the past is a little bit more intense than they can even imagine. Aboriginal cultures do not represent ancient societies. It is naive to assume that they are not also the product of thousands of years of adaptation and innovation, which is ongoing. They are no more living representatives of the past than any other contemporary society. Archaeologists in Australia abandoned the term, quote-unquote, Stone Age decades ago. So should you. This article was originally published on The Conversation, and read the original article. So it's published in some other, but I ran into this some time ago. I had it in my bookmarks, and I wanted to go over it because it's just so relevant to the things that I say on my channel, things that Jimmy says about stonework, etc., etc. So you should be thinking about it that way. And I know a lot of people don't listen to the radio discussions that Jimmy and I have on WOL, but some of them are fascinating. And I'm telling you, the area of the northeastern part of North America is probably one of the most interesting megacities of ancient stone constructions on the planet. It's absolutely gigantic, because the walls are contiguous, and I go over that on this channel. You can see the LiDAR imaging. I show you the LiDAR imaging in New Hampshire, and how many of these areas are just contiguous with the stone walls, and it's just covered, gigantic. regions, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of square miles, and there's so many different things, and they're so much more interesting. I mean, the stone circles in South Africa are certainly interesting ancient constructions, but they don't vary much in it. They vary in shape, but they're very similar to each other. Whereas the stone constructions in the Northeast, these walls and everything, are so highly complex, and the chambers, the effigies, the earthworks, the engineering of the waterways, etc. Just unbelievable, just unbelievable. Okay, and the giants were here too. They weren't only there, and so they were all over this planet. And just as they were all throughout the planet, weird shaped skulls and everything, it applies to the Northeast. So again, when you're looking at some of these things that Jimmy shows on his channel, don't dismiss it offhand as being nothing. And I've heard these criticisms, I just feel they're just so unfair. And here I demonstrate right here, this is mainstream, okay? I'm sure these people think that mainstream agrees with them 100%, that these say it's not, folks. It's the real McCoy. Jimmy's site up there is just an amazing, archaic stone construction site with so much is going on right where he is. It's unbelievable. I envy him much. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video, and please do hit the like button if you did. And I will be coming back with the Giants again. I'm going to go through. I'm going to go to Idaho next, I believe. And there's just some fascinating ones there too. We got to cover some of that stuff. This one just mind blowing one there. We'll get to it, man. All right. So anyway, Budcat7 signing out. Peace.